Well, hi everyone. My name is Kimmy, and I'm one of the staff here at Hillsong.
And I'm Jad. I'm one of our creative pastors, and I oversee a lot of the worship that happens in Australia across our locations.
Totally. All right, Jad, we're going to jump right in. Is that cool?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to start us off. Very first question.
Yes.
What is the basic expectation of a worship leader here at Hillsong?
I think that it's important to kind of talk about expectations. I think that's really an important thing to do. So we try and talk about kind of what the real reason is why we have somebody up on the stage with a microphone, and we kind of, because sometimes you can think, sometimes you can get confused about it because there's a stage and it's nice and high and you've got a microphone and there's a PA system and screens. It can be quite confusing, but we want to boil it down to simple basics. So we'd like to remind people and encourage them that we have worship leaders because sometimes people just need that little bit of help kind of getting to where they are, distracted or burdened or whatever, to a place where they actually can respond to who God is. And well, you've got to remember, it takes a step of faith to kind of reach out to God because, first of all, you can't see Him. And a lot of people, they're kind of burdened or distracted by what's gone on in their life that week. So they come into church, and we have worship leaders to actually just help them get to from where they are to where they need to be, where they're kind of open to God and kind of responding in a way that kind of is positive.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so when we're talking about leaning into the actual leadership side of being a worship leader, what are some things that you would say are important traits of an effective worship leader? Because we're not just like chucking people up on platform because they sing good, right?
Right.
So can you speak into that a bit?
Yeah, I think it's important for worship leaders to understand that in order to build rapport and credibility, you need to be consistently kind of showing up, I guess. One important thing for me to remember is that I've been a worship leader for a long, long time, and I've built a rapport with our congregation over years. And so it would be different. I have a different kind of level of influence and authority than somebody who has been worship leading for maybe a few months or a year or so. So I think one of the most important traits is being able to understand that if you consistently kind of show up, if you do what's right for people, if you lead them to the right place,
right,
they begin to trust you. And my kind of thought is if you're approachable and people can connect with you, then the chances are they'll trust you and follow you. So I think it's important to kind of understand that you're there to kind of serve them. I think that's a really kind of important thing to remember.
Totally. So you're leading the people by serving them, not necessarily telling them exactly what to do, but you're actually just bringing them with you where you're wanting to take them.
I think it's important to keep in mind that if worship leaders get too bossy, it kind of produces the opposite response from people.
Absolutely.
So if you're kind of there to serve them, and a good example is being invitational. So if you're kind of barking orders into the microphone, telling them to lift their hands and sing louder or whatever, you probably have a better response if you're a little more invitational. Like if you were like, would you lift your hands? Would you lift your voice? Encouraging them with kind of ways that they could respond rather than kind of barking orders. I think that's...
Absolutely. Yeah. I definitely know I respond better because I'm actually thinking about, oh, do I want to? Yes, I do want to. I do want to join where you take me. I'm not just going to be like, oh, I'm ready.
Right, and the other thing too is if someone is quite bossy, usually, with yourself, you're like...
Not going.
And it's kind of human nature. So you've got to understand that if you're there to serve them, then you're helping them get to where they need to be, which is in the presence of God.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Okay, so can you, Jad, just talk a little bit about development and growing in craft and leadership capabilities?
I think for worship leaders, like everybody kind of wants to get better. Everybody wants to kind of be great at what they do. And there's so many people in our team and they'll come and say, hey, is there anything that I can do better? Is there anything that I could work on? And a lot of times there's technical things that you could kind of suggest. But to be honest, my main piece of feedback, and there's two pieces of feedback. The first one would be, show up every week. Show up every week. Be the same guy on the platform and off the platform. That's how you build your credibility. That's how you build your rapport with the congregation. I think the other thing to be kind of really working on is develop an awareness of how you impact other people.
Right.
How, you know, like obviously when I was talking about before where maybe someone overplays their authority or overreaches with their authority,
right.
That's because of a lack of awareness. You haven't gauged kind of where your level of authority is,
totally.
And where your kind of rapport and relationship with the congregation is. And I think being a real student of, you know, and developing your awareness when it comes to how you impact people, how you affect people, how you are being received, and I think it's not kind of like a thing that you can really pinpoint and kind of make a and kind of quantify.
Right.
But it is something that the more you do it, the more you realise, oh, when I did that, it definitely was, it had a negative impact on response. But when I did this, you know, people really lent into it. So kind of being open to develop an awareness when it comes to how you are interacting with people, I think it really goes a long way.
Can I ask a question on that? So when it comes to developing your self-awareness, if people don't, like, how do I do that? Would you encourage them to ask someone they trust? Would you encourage them to ask their leader? Or what's a good way to start being more self-aware, besides like what you can clearly know and feel and see?
I would find somebody who's relatively neutral.
Yeah.
Like somebody who's in the congregation who basically, who you trust, obviously, who you know that is going to build you up.
Right.
But without kind of just giving you the fine weather all the time. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But just asking, you know, when I did this, you know, how do you think people responded to that? Do you think this was cool, or do you think, you know, and don't do it with too many people. You don't want to be chasing after everybody's opinion. You want to go to people that you trust and people that know what they're talking about, obviously.
So good.
But I think that I think that you've got to be willing to accept the feedback, obviously.
Yeah.
The other thing is, if you can get hold of footage of yourself worship leading, which is painful as.
It's the worst.
Like I send out footage of when people lead, and I'm like, I know it's not nice to watch yourself, but it's really helpful to see how you come across, to see how you interact with the people, and you probably think that you're smiling lots.
Yeah.
But just have a look, because you're probably not smiling as much as you think you are. So, you know, like those are some great kind of markers.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, cool. Okay, we're gonna go there. Are you ready? All right, so when it comes to worship leader, lack of a better word, I'll say pet peeves. Ooh. So in terms of like, I'll just, you say what you want to say about that. What do you think? What do you reckon? Like things that you're like, yep, nah.
One of the things that I'm always kind of frustrated by is when worship leaders talk, but they haven't thought through what they're going to say, or B, they kind of they say some autopilot thing that they always say when they get into that position, and they've kind of they've forgotten what it means, but they just say it all the time. My encouragement to people would be super intentional about if you're ever going to speak, be super intentional. The other thing is plan. It's not kind of non-spiritual to plan what you're going to say. If you're going to say something, if you want to help the congregation, if you want to gather them or whatever, there's no problem with planning what you're going to say. I know for me personally, I plan an entry, and then I say what I want to say, and I've got an exit planned as well, so that you don't get caught in a loop and ramble on. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I think that's, you know, those are some of the things that annoy me. My kind of thing that I encourage our team with is keep it Bible.
Yeah.
Like keep it simple and keep it Bible. No one has to process and think about and decide whether or not they agree with you. They just hear that it's Bible, and all of a sudden we're gathered in agreement, because that's just what happens.
Yeah,
so
totally.
It's like a little shortcut.
Yeah, and something I love that I feel like I've definitely learned from you as well is like, we do have someone who's going to minister the word of God, and someone who's going to preach and share the theology, you know, all those things. So,
and they're probably good at it.
And they're probably really good at it. And so let them do that.
Yeah.
And I love that, because it just frees you up to do what you're meant to do, which is bring people to Jesus.
If you're going to speak, for me, the objective is gathering people. So you gather them so that then you can take them somewhere. And
Yeah.
I usually only speak to the congregation if people are distracted or whether we kind of feel like they're a bit scattered, and you know, kind of gathering them together and getting them in agreement would really help us with momentum and engagement.
Yeah, awesome. We're gonna do one last thing really fast. One encouragement to people out there for worship leaders.
My encouragement to worship leaders would be just relax. The congregation actually want you to succeed. They're so gracious. They actually want to have a positive experience in worship. They want you to be good at what you do. It's not the hostile environment that sometimes we can build up in our heads. What you'll find is your congregation is so gracious and they want you to succeed. So relax, smile, know that the best outcome of this whole situation is for these people to come into contact with the presence of God, and all of a sudden, then you've done your job.
Awesome. All right, well, that's us for today, guys. Thank you so much. I know I've learned a lot, been reminded of a lot, so thank you for your time.